like and subscribe to the channel, and maybe no one will get hurt. Normal people who have dated famous people, how was it like? Family friend dated Juliet from Lost for a while. He said it was really tough to be in public with her because she would get swarmed. She apparently really loved walking dogs and actually took our dog on a walk one time when she visited. She loved being in the middle of nowhere apparently. She was exceptionally nice though, and we talked a lot about the Red Sox, which was cool for young me. My mom met her now best friend at a party. The friend was new in town, so my mom brought baby me over to play with her kids. She said the entryway had a ton of sports memorabilia, so she assumed they were just really big sports fans. The friend's husband came home in workout clothes, apologizes because he's been at practice, and my mom says, "Which high school are you coaching?" He was actually a big deal NBA player who'd recently been traded to our city's team. He's always been a really cool family-oriented guy. He'd take us behind the scenes for all the games, floor seats. It was a blast. He's still involved in the NBA now, not as a player, and is just as cool. Friend of a friend is engaged to Jonah Hill. He's a nice guy, they travel a lot. He obviously is pretty wealthy but funny, relatively normal. Doesn't love the spotlight. He went to a college graduation and everyone made such a big deal that he was there and tried to take pictures that he had to leave because he just wanted to support his girlfriend's sister. Not me, but my cousin married a football player for the St. Louis Rams, and whenever they came over to our family gatherings it was so awkward because we didn't want to be too chills around him, but we also didn't want to fan out on him. I didn't date a famous person, but a famous person's son. I was spoiled, and that was very nice. Dinners out all the time, expensive gifts. Half of my purse is now high-end ones that his mom just didn't want anymore, or got as presents from people buttering up her husband. When I was out with his family, his dad was often stopped and recognized by people. Relationship didn't work out because my ex, son of the famous person, was afraid of moving out of his parents' house and losing their financial support. He ended up cheating on me. I dated a guy who had a lot of international success in the late 90s. He hit me up on Instagram. He's still an A-list celebrity in my country and he's a very nice guy, but he's clearly been affected by not having been told no for 20 years. During both our first 2 dates he asked if we could watch him on TV. He hadn't seen the final product and wanted to know how he did. That was a little weird. I eventually called it quits because even though we just dated casually, I heard through the grapevine that he got around, and I don't like to share. I dated a famous guitarist whose band was big in the 2000s. Still is, but that was their prime. Anyways, he was sweet but as most, a cheater. He just seemed lost all the time also as to what he even wanted or who he even was. Even after we split, and seeing him go through all these relationships, and then a marriage/divorce, he still seems unhappy as hell. Hope he gets his shit together eventually. Edit, I'm not going to put his name out there, but think more alt-rock/acoustic. A friend of mine dated Miss Chabarton while she was filming the pilot for The Ark. They were fairly serious. Lots of actors in LA film pilots, so we were all just this group of young hopefuls who played pool and drank together. Well, the show got picked up and was a hit and they broke up almost immediately. It was like she disappeared to another planet. My buddy was just as bummed as anyone would be to get dumped by a beautiful woman that they were really into. We were talking about how sad he was about it while grocery shopping one day, and when we got to the checkout, her face was on the cover of 3 or 4 magazines. We had a laugh, but I felt for the dude. So I dated an influencer back in college. Not famous, but girls would recognize her in the streets, New York City. It was fine in first, but we couldn't even get a drink at the bar without people coming up to her for a selfie. And the guys were beyond creepy. I would often catch men, middle-aged mostly, just staring her down. I called out a few, and they left us alone after that. Anyway, social media dictated her happiness. We would be having a great time and she would completely lose it because her video only got X amount of likes. I eventually broke it off because of the stress her career had on the relationship. TLDR, go outside and enjoy nature and stay off social media. I dated an MLB player. He cheated the entire time, but I'll be honest, I was so in love with him and the lifestyle that I didn't care. All athletes have this amazing ability to disregard any form of a conscience. What else was it like? Well, we could buy whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted. There was a surprising amount of boring downtime. He hated people coming up to him, and he married someone else and still tries to cheat on her with me 6 years later. My mother dated an A-list singer in the 80s who is now still fairly famous, probably a B+ list now. He was supposedly the worst driver she ever encountered, but other than that pretty nice. Her boss at the time had 2 daughters who really loved him, so he dropped off a bunch of signed merchandise and talked her boss into promoting her. She didn't take the pressure wonderfully. They got mobbed once or twice in public and she once caught photographers in front of my grandma's house. His parents made them break up because she wasn't the right religion. Despite being at that time one of the biggest names, his parents still controlled him. My mom went to one of his concerts a few years ago hoping she could bump into him, but it didn't happen. Apparently security had heard the "I used to date him" line before. Since none of these are people actually dating famous people, I knew a couple where one of them was modestly famous, successful indie musician. They got on like basically any other couple. He'd get recognized if they were out on the town, but he did most of his partying on the road and she did girls' nights out. They had trouble staying in touch while touring, just because of crazy hours and phone reception, but they got through it like most any couple where one of them is on the road like salesman and whatnot. Really not much was different than normal. We didn't date, but hooked up a few times. He's a rapper from New York, affiliated with one of the most popular groups of all time. If you're into old school rap then you know his name, but the average person has no clue. I'm a nerd from the suburbs on the opposite coast who happened to make friends with some musicians, and thusly met the famous guy. We spent some time together every few months for a year or so at shows, etc. I flirted my ass off, but it took a long time. The first night we made out I left him in his room, and he was blue ball just like any other dude. I was so proud of myself, NGL, I still giggle when I recall the look on his face as I was walking out. Don't worry though, I'm not evil, we fucked the next night. He would hit me up when he was in town for a year or 2 after that, and we eventually lost contact. Pretty regular guy from the moment I first touched his PP, but I had put in work to get there. Not me, but a friend dated a big influencer on Instagram or YouTube, I don't remember the exact. While he was a genuinely nice guy from what I know, anytime we would talk relationships my friend always semi-complained about people gushing over him / doing weird and inappropriate things to him like grabbing his behind / hugging him out of the blue etc. That made my friend kinda jealous. Though they said it was fun most times because they felt special in a way, plus it was really fun to help them set up cameras or whatever that influencer did. Best mate dated an it girl who was distantly on the line to the throne apparently. She was batshit crazy. When they broke up used her influence to try to have him sacked from his job to lawyers turned up with a 30-page NDA with a note from her saying she had her last ex's passport taken off him and he's now a junkie in a bedsit, so he better sign it, which he did. Edit remove detail about her as I don't like lawyers. It was freaking obnoxious. I'd dreaded most of our dates in public because inevitably someone would recognize him and want to chat or make a big deal about it. Sometimes people would even sit at our table and keep talking to him as though it wasn't obvious we were on a date. I'll never date a celebrity again, I like peace and anonymity too much. I dated a well-known news anchor for about a few months, which was based out of New York City. To be fair, I had no clue who he was, and his first introduction should have been a massive red flag. We met in a bar in New York City during a private fundraising event for charity a few years ago. Him, hi, do you know who I am? Me, should I? him, looks at me a bit bewildered, and tells me his name. I give him the same face back, after which he tells me which channel he's on. That initial interaction should have told me to get the fuck out of there, but he was good looking enough that I ignored his initial narcissism. During the course of the relationship, he learned next to nothing about me or what I do for a living and barely scratched the surface on my likes or dislikes. I'm not sure if he's on TV anymore, but I know he's no longer on that channel. Thanks as viewing. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and like it. In the next video, I will open the third eye.